In a quiet suburb of Sacramento, California, a 6-year-old girl named Isabella sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor one afternoon in March 2019, arranging her dolls in careful rows. Her mother, Rachel, watched from the doorway as Isabella suddenly paused, her small hands hovering over a blonde-haired doll. She picked it up slowly, turned it over in her hands, and said something that made Rachel's heart stop. "This was my favorite color. The champagne dress. I wore it when I sang for the president." Rachel felt the air leave her lungs. Isabella had never shown particular interest in old Hollywood. They didn't watch classic films. The family didn't discuss movie stars from generations past. Yet here was her daughter, holding a doll with platinum blonde hair, speaking with an eerie certainty about a life that seemed impossibly distant from a first grader in suburban California. What began that afternoon would unfold into one of the most extensively documented cases of past life memory involving a Hollywood icon. Isabella's statements, initially dismissed by Rachel as childhood imagination, became increasingly specific and unsettling. She described rooms in a house she'd never seen, relationships with people she'd never heard of, and most disturbingly, she spoke with vivid detail about a night that has remained one of Hollywood's greatest mysteries for more than half a century. Rachel, a middle school teacher with a skeptical disposition, began documenting everything. She kept a journal of Isabella's unprompted statements, noting dates, contexts, and exact wording. She showed Isabella photographs of various blonde actresses from different eras, mixing them randomly. Isabella's small finger pointed immediately to one image. "That's me, but I look different there. That was taken when I was sad." The photograph was from 1961. Isabella was born in 2013. The mathematical impossibility should have ended the conversation, but the certainty in her daughter's voice kept Rachel investigating. Dr. Michael Torres, a psychiatrist at UC Davis who specialized in childhood memory phenomena, agreed to meet with the family after Rachel reached out through a colleague. Dr. Torres had spent 15 years researching cases of children who claimed past life memories, approaching each case with rigorous methodology and healthy skepticism. He'd investigated dozens of claims. Most dissolved under careful examination. Some did not. The first session took place in Dr. Torres's office on a Saturday morning in May. Isabella arrived wearing a pink t-shirt with a cartoon character clutching a stuffed elephant. She seemed like any other 6-year-old, shy at first, warming gradually to the stranger asking her questions. Dr. Torres began with neutral topics, establishing baseline responses, observing how Isabella processed and answered questions. Then he shifted direction. "Can you tell me about the house you remember?" Isabella's demeanor changed. She sat straighter. Her vocabulary shifted, became more sophisticated. "There was a white piano in the living room. I would practice there, but the notes always made me feel lonely. The house was in Brentwood. I could see the city lights at night from my bedroom window, but they felt so far away. I always felt far away from everything." Dr. Torres showed Isabella architectural drawings of various houses from 1960s Los Angeles, mixing styles and layouts. Without hesitation, Isabella pointed to one specific floor plan. "That's close, but the bedroom was on the other side. And there was a guest house. That's where people would stay sometimes. People I didn't always want there." Dr. Torres made careful notes. The floor plan Isabella identified matched the Brentwood home where Marilyn Monroe lived in the final months of her life. The correction Isabella made about the bedroom location was architecturally accurate. The guest house detail matched property records that weren't readily available online, especially not in child-accessible formats. Over subsequent sessions, Isabella provided details that painted an increasingly specific picture. She described the interior decorator who helped with the house, mentioning his first name and that he had dark hair and wore nice suits. Records confirmed that Marilyn had indeed worked with an interior designer named George who matched this description. Isabella talked about a small dog, describing its coloring and the sound of its nails clicking on the tile floor. Marilyn had owned a Maltese terrier. Isabella mentioned feeling sick often, her stomach hurting, having trouble sleeping. Medical records, though incomplete, documented Marilyn's struggles with gastrointestinal issues and chronic insomnia. But it was when Isabella began speaking about that night, the night of August 4th, 1962, that the investigation took on new urgency and complexity. Rachel had been reading Isabella a bedtime story one evening in July 2019 when Isabella suddenly interrupted. "I need to tell you what really happened that night. I need someone to know." Rachel set the book down slowly. Isabella's eyes were distant, focused on something Rachel couldn't see. There were phone calls. So many phone calls. I was trying to reach someone who I thought could help, but he wasn't answering. I felt so alone. I took pills because I couldn't sleep. I always took pills to sleep. But that night, I took more because I felt so scared and confused. Isabella described the layout of the bedroom, the color of the bedding, the telephone beside the bed. She mentioned that someone came to the house, someone she knew, but their arrival made things worse, not better. I heard raised voices. I was so tired. Everything was becoming foggy. I remember lying down. I remember thinking I just needed a rest, just for a while. The room was spinning. I could hear someone calling my name, but their voice sounded so far away, like it was coming from underwater. Isabella's small face crumpled. I didn't mean to go. I wasn't trying to leave. I just wanted the pain to stop, the loneliness to stop. But my body stopped working. Dr. Torres brought in Dr. Evelyn Hartley, a historian specializing in 1960s Hollywood and the Monroe case specifically, to review Isabella's statements against historical records. Dr. Hartley had spent 20 years researching the circumstances of Monroe's death, interviewing everyone still living who had been connected to that night, reviewing coroner's reports, police files, and telephone records. She approached the Isabella case with professional skepticism. Children absorbed information from unexpected sources. Family members inadvertently provided details. The internet made obscure facts accessible. But as Dr. Hartley compared Isabella's unprompted statements with her research, her skepticism encountered obstacles. Isabella had described a particular pattern on the bedding, a detail that appeared in only one photograph in the actual scene, a photograph that had never been widely published and existed primarily in archival police files. She mentioned a specific decorative element in the bedroom, a small statue of a figure that appeared in inventory records, but not in any published photographs or mainstream accounts. Most significantly, Isabella described interactions and emotional states that aligned with private testimony from individuals who were present or nearby that night, testimony that existed in sealed depositions and private interviews Dr. Hartley had conducted years earlier. During one session in September, Dr. Torres asked Isabella directly about the people who came to the house that night. She became visibly distressed. "There was someone who scared me. Not because they were mean to me, but because they were scared, and their fear made me more scared. They were trying to help, but they didn't know what to do. And there was someone else, someone who came later. They were very calm, but it was a scary kind of calm, like they were thinking about something other than helping me." Isabella wrapped her arms around herself. "I could feel my body, but I couldn't make it work anymore. I wanted to tell them I was still there, that I could hear them, but nothing would work. My voice wouldn't work. My hands wouldn't move. I was trapped inside, and I was so scared." This description aligned disturbingly with medical understanding of barbiturate overdose, the mechanism of Monroe's death. The progression Isabella described, the initial fog, the gradual loss of motor control, the maintained consciousness trapped in an unresponsive body, matched clinical accounts of severe overdose events. Dr. Torres consulted with a toxicologist who confirmed that Isabella's description was medically accurate for the type and quantity of drugs found in Monroe's system, details far beyond what a 6-year-old would typically understand about pharmacology or physiology. Rachel struggled with the implications. She was a woman of science, of evidence, and rational explanation. Yet her daughter was describing not just historical facts, but subjective experiences that seemed to reach across decades. She sat with Isabella one evening in October, holding her hand, and asked the question that had been building for months. "Do you remember what it felt like to die?" Isabella looked at her mother with eyes that seemed too old for her small face. It felt like falling asleep when you're trying really hard to stay awake. Like when you're in the car and you know you should tell someone you're tired, but you just close your eyes for a second. And then the second becomes longer. And then you're somewhere else, and you're not in your body anymore, and you realize you can't go back. It felt like letting go when you didn't mean to. The investigation expanded to include verification attempts of details that could be independently confirmed. Dr. Hartley created a protocol. She would show Isabella photographs of various individuals from the 1950s and 60s, mixing people Marilyn Monroe had known with similar-looking individuals she'd never met. Isabella's success rate in identifying actual acquaintances was statistically significant. When shown a photograph of someone Monroe had briefly dated in 1956, Isabella said, "He was nice to me, but he loved himself more than he could love anyone else." Historical accounts from individuals who knew the man confirmed this assessment. When shown a photograph of a studio executive, Isabella's expression darkened. "He made me feel like a thing, not a person. He would talk about me like I wasn't in the room." Contemporaneous accounts from other actresses describe this executive in remarkably similar terms. Dr. Torres implemented additional protocols to rule out information contamination. He brought in a child psychologist, Dr. Amanda Reed, who specialized in suggestibility and memory implantation in young children. Dr. Reed conducted independent sessions with Isabella, using techniques designed to detect coached responses or fabricated memories. Children who were coached typically showed specific patterns: increased accuracy with repeated questioning, addition of new details that aligned suspiciously well with adult knowledge, responses that sounded rehearsed or used vocabulary beyond their developmental level in consistent ways. Isabella showed different patterns. Her core statements remained consistent across sessions, but she added emotional context and sensory details rather than historical facts. Her vocabulary remained age-appropriate except when describing specific technical elements, the architecture of the house, the sensation of medication effects, where her language became precise in ways that seemed reflexive rather than learned. In one particularly striking session, Dr. Reed asked Isabella about her happiest memory from that life. Isabella smiled, a genuine childlike smile that contrasted with the gravity of previous discussions. "I remember a beach house. I think it was borrowed, maybe from a friend. There were big windows that opened right onto the sand. I could hear the ocean all night. I wasn't working. I wasn't trying to be anything for anyone. I was just there with the sound of the water and the salt air. And for those days, I felt like maybe I could be happy. Maybe I could be enough." Dr. Reed later confirmed with Dr. Hartley that Monroe had indeed stayed at a friend's Malibu beach house in the summer of 1962, taking a brief break from professional commitments. The stay had been relatively private, not widely publicized, and individuals who knew about it described Monroe as unusually relaxed during those days. The question that haunted all the researchers was not whether Isabella was accurately describing Marilyn Monroe's life and death, but how. The options seemed limited, and each presented profound implications. If Isabella had somehow accessed this information through normal means, it suggested either an extraordinary coincidence of available facts aligning with the psychological needs of a troubled 6-year-old, or information contamination so sophisticated that it evaded multiple layers of professional detection. If Isabella's knowledge couldn't be explained through conventional information transfer, then the investigation opened into territory that challenged fundamental assumptions about consciousness, memory, and identity. Dr. Torres spent months reviewing every detail of Isabella's home life, her media exposure, her education environment. Rachel provided complete access to family computers, showing browsing histories and streaming records. The family watched contemporary children's programming. They didn't have cable packages that included classic film channels. Rachel's own internet searches showed no pattern of Monroe-related research before Isabella's statements began. Extended family members were interviewed. None had particular knowledge of Monroe beyond general cultural awareness. Isabella's school curriculum contained no content related to 1960s Hollywood. The potential sources of contamination kept dissolving under examination. By spring 2020, the investigation had produced hundreds of pages of documentation. Dr. Torres collaborated with Dr. Hartley and Dr. Reed to prepare a comprehensive case study. They concluded that Isabella demonstrated knowledge of Marilyn Monroe's life, particularly the circumstances of her death, that was highly specific, emotionally consistent, and difficult to attribute to normal information channels available to a child her age. They stopped short of claiming proof of reincarnation or past life memory, but their report stated clearly that the case warranted serious consideration and resisted easy dismissal. Isabella herself seemed less burdened as the investigation progressed. The process of speaking about the memories appeared therapeutic. Rachel noticed that the night terrors Isabella had experienced before the investigation began, nightmares of being trapped, unable to move, or call for help, decreased in frequency and intensity. It was as if Isabella had been carrying something too heavy for her small frame, and speaking about it, being heard and taken seriously, had lightened the weight. In one of the final formal sessions, Dr. Torres asked Isabella what she wanted people to understand about that night in 1962. She was quiet for a long moment, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. "I want people to know I didn't mean to go. I wasn't trying to end things. I was just so tired and sad and confused, and I made a mistake. I took too much medicine trying to sleep, trying to make the feelings stop. And by the time I realized something was wrong, it was too late to fix it. I want people to know it was an accident. I was scared at the end, not sad anymore. Just scared. And I want them to know that even when you're famous and people think you have everything, you can still feel alone. You can still hurt so much inside that you don't know how to make it through another day." The case raises questions that extend beyond one child's memories. If consciousness can somehow persist beyond death, if memories can transfer across lives, what does that suggest about identity and existence? If Isabella truly remembers being Marilyn Monroe, is she somehow still Monroe, continuing in a different form? Or are these memories more like recordings that somehow imprinted on a new consciousness? The researchers involved in the investigation don't claim to have answers, only meticulously documented questions that resist comfortable resolution. As of this recording, Isabella is now 11 years old. Rachel reports that the detailed memories have faded significantly, a pattern documented in similar cases where childhood past life memories diminish as the child ages and develops stronger memories of their current life. Isabella remembers having the memories but can no longer access them with the vivid clarity she once possessed. She's become interested in theater. Though Rachel notes, she shows no particular desire to pursue film acting. She's a thoughtful child, unusually empathetic, who sometimes seems to carry an old sadness that surfaces in quiet moments. The investigation into Isabella's case continues to challenge our understanding of memory, consciousness, and the nature of identity itself. Whether she truly remembers being Marilyn Monroe, or whether something else entirely is occurring, her specific knowledge of that final night offers a perspective that has been absent from decades of speculation and investigation. If her account is accurate, it suggests that one of Hollywood's greatest mysteries was not a conspiracy or murder, but a tragic accident. A desperate woman seeking sleep and relief from pain who miscalculated dosage in a fog of medication and emotional distress, realizing too late that she'd taken too much to survive. It's a quieter, sadder ending than dramatic theories of conspiracy, but perhaps that makes it more true to the life Marilyn Monroe actually lived, a life of private pain behind public glamour, of loneliness amid fame, of a person struggling to be seen as fully human rather than an icon or fantasy. The implications of Isabella's case extend into fundamental questions about existence. If consciousness continues, if memories can somehow transcend death and emerge in new lives, then we're invited to reconsider assumptions about the nature of self and the permanence of death. These are not comfortable questions. They challenge materialist understandings of consciousness while also resisting easy spiritual certainties. The evidence doesn't prove reincarnation, but it suggests phenomena worthy of serious investigation rather than reflexive dismissal. Cases like Isabella's, when investigated with rigor and documented thoroughly, invite us to remain open to possibilities that exceed our current frameworks of understanding while maintaining the critical thinking necessary to distinguish genuine mystery from wishful thinking or fabrication. If you're fascinated by these investigations into consciousness, memory, and the possibility of past lives, subscribe to this channel for more documented cases that challenge our understanding of identity and existence. We explore these mysteries with the respect they deserve, neither dismissing them out of hand nor accepting them uncritically, but investigating them thoroughly and letting the evidence speak for itself. Join us as we continue exploring the boundaries between what we know and what remains tantalizingly, provokingly unknown.